The latest report suggests the Bucks are buyers at the trade deadline and leading up to it. The ripple effects that could cause. Camille and I dig into it coming up next on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. We thank all of you for tuning in, whether it's the first time every single day that you've been here with us this season. I know it's been a challenge at times, but for your assistance in making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network in the industry. And as always, you can hear Camille weekly on our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network each and every game. I know this is a lot of the feedback we've heard this season, Camille, is people are kind of sick of the trade discussions and the soap opera that's become Giannis's trade rumors, right? I think we're all fatigued by it as well. But days like today are where you kind of say, look, I'm sorry, but there's nothing else for us to dig into here. We did the postgame last night after a 45-point loss to the Brooklyn Nets. We can pick apart, hey, what went wrong, and what's continued to go wrong in a 45-point loss in the season that's seen you go 11-16 are things we have discussed every single day. We are going to do some more of that tomorrow, and I believe we're going to have Frank joining us with just a high-level view of these first 27 games and whether or not we need to kind of reset expectations and level set where this team is headed and what that does for digging into do this differently and so on. But we did have a bit of an update on those rumors in yesterday's piece that posted to The Athletic by our friend Eric Name, who said, which, at this point, Camille, I don't know if it would be received as good news or bad news by Bucks fans, that his intel and his sourcing is telling him this team is looking to make another aggressive move to convince Giannis to stay. We have certainly heard some names linked to this team already this season. We can dig into those and why I wouldn't dismiss things that have carried a lot of smoke, but financially it may not be feasible or realistic. But when you saw the report that, hey, at this point, they're leaning towards being buyers and making another aggressive move, and that last line, to convince him to stay. What did you make of that?
I had a few reactions to it immediately. The first one was like, okay, that's business as normal. Like, that is what the Bucks have been doing for years now. It is like, we want to make sure that we can put together a team that makes a lot of sense to us on the floor, that can compete, and ultimately makes Giannis happy and makes him want to stay and feel like he can compete for championships here in Milwaukee. Like, you don't have to go anywhere else for your help, Giannis. We're going to bring it to you. That's how the Bucks have been operating. I'm like, okay, that makes some sense. I'm not necessarily surprised that that's the approach for the Bucks heading into the trade deadline. But what I will say is that what made me keep thinking about was, like, with all the smoke that we've been having around if Giannis wants to be in Milwaukee, if his representatives are talking, and according to Chris Haynes, Giannis is saying, like, I don't even have control over what my representatives are saying. Like, it is just what it is. Like, they're on their own, which I guess that's another conversation for another day. But if that is all that is going on, right, and we're unsure if Giannis wants to stay, I am not as inclined or excited about the prospects of the Bucks utilizing additional draft capital and making what could be seen as a desperation move to try to convince him to stay. The move would have to make sense, not only for this season, but the next few, I would think. And I don't think that the Bucks should do something as like a last ditch Hail Mary of like, we're going to mortgage our future and he might not be here. Like, if you're going to make one of those swings that is seen as future compromising to a degree, I would assume and hope that if they make that type of move, that Giannis has indicated, like, hey, you guys, you know what? Actually, all this smoke that you've been hearing, all of this stuff, that ain't real. I'm going to be here. I'm staying here, because otherwise I'm just not as excited or interested in continuing to mortgage the future for somebody who might not be here for that future.
Yeah, and I mean, mortgaging the future.
What's left of our future?
It's more doable in the summer than it is now. Like on draft night, they can trade 3 first-round picks. Again, whether or not those should be on the table is a different conversation we may get to today. But you can get more out of that over the summer when 3 picks the day of the draft become available for you to send out. Right now, it's just 1 pick that you can trade out, and that's the 2031 pick. At this point, you're in position to have a decent pick in the first round this year. Like, I think every simulator so far has the Bucks drafting 12th, which, right now you're on the outside looking in, missing the lottery, missing the playoffs, I should say. And that's going to continue to be an interesting thing to monitor, because we're still, I would guess, 2 weeks away from Giannis making his return. That, we said you're going to have to tread water. They haven't. And we said you're going to have to ideally go 7-4 in this stretch. They're not on their way towards that. When you lose games like you lose to the Brooklyn Nets, and in the fashion that you lose to that Nets team, like, again, it's too early, and this is where I may contradict myself a bit. It's too early in the season to call anything a must-win game. And quite frankly, I hate using that term for anything that isn't the playoffs or late season possible elimination. But the games that you have left, going back to Sunday, the games you have left on the schedule against the Brooklyn Nets, the Washington Wizards, the Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, the Pelicans. We're approaching the same territory with the Kings and the Clippers too. Like, those, honestly, with the hole you have put yourself in, those have to be non-negotiables. We need to win these games. We're going to have to beat the really bad teams in the league, understanding full well you are now one of those teams. You're going to have to beat those teams, and you're going to have to steal wins from teams that are in front of you in the standings. And just to go back and clean something up, they're 10th because the Bulls are in this constant hold my beer off with them and lost as well. So you're effectively tied with the Bulls in the standings. You have a better win percentage, but you have more losses. And that's going to be a larger conversation we get into in a segment or two down the road here, Camille. But yeah, I didn't know what to make of it when I saw they're going to remain aggressive, because it has, and it can carry the have a baby to save the marriage vibes, in that, okay, well, somebody's going to have to take care of this kid if things go south here, that we're responsible for this. And that's what you're looking at with these next couple of years of making a potential move. So we mentioned what it is that the Bucks could trade over the summer versus what they could trade right now, the outlook of the contracts that are out there, and more of the message that's being delivered from the organization to Giannis and vice versa. We'll get into that coming up next. NFL Sunday move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. You see a receiver getting hot, a defense that starts to tighten up, or the momentum flipping after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into each of those moments. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys start to heat. And you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. So can you. So we mentioned too, Camille, if you want the latest scoop on everything Bucks, you can join the Everydayer Club. You're already living your team live every day. Take it up a level, go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club. Get Locked On Bucks with no interruptions. Members-only Discord access and more, all for just $5 a month, $50 a year. The URL to do so is pasted in our show description. The assets that this team has. So again, just one draft pick is available to trade right now. I forget where it was. I saw somebody else mentioning honestly, just look at smaller moves and send out second round picks for rotational pieces that'll help this team. If you know where those second round picks are located, I'm all ears on that, and I'm open to that move. But here's the other challenge. Right now, and we talked about the importance of maybe breaking up the contracts on the roster a bit and not just being so top heavy with your max deals in Giannis and Dame, or in higher value deals in Chris and Brooke Lopez, and then just all minimums. Good news and bad news is the Bucks still have a lot of those lesser value deals money-wise in minimum contracts, but they're still incredibly top heavy. You got Giannis making $54+ million this season. Then you have Miles Turner at $25.3 million. Kyle Kuzma at just over $22 million. You have Damian Lillard's money. That's not a player, but that's another salary slot, basically, that's being used. And then $13 million for Bobby Porter. After that, there's nobody making more than $5 million, which is Kevin Porter Jr. Now, again, the good news is you would assume that breakdown of contracts is going to change next year when Kevin Porter Jr.'s annual salary, I would assume, starts with a 1. But that's the other challenge to all of this is, you're still pretty top heavy because you got $20+ million tied into Damian Lillard that otherwise would have been a player in a mid-level caliber contract. That's just dead money. So it's you swap that out for a minimum, basically, is the way to view it. So I hate getting into players specifically for obvious reasons. There's two things I hate doing. I'll let you do it as much as you want, Camille. Individual players with trades and all that chatter of trade for this guy and trade this guy out, which I would assume people can understand how it puts me in a difficult spot, and the coaching criticism, which again, you're free to do it. We've seen the comments. I can't disagree with a lot of what I've seen, but that's as far as I'll go. The Kings are a team that's come up the most. So here's why. I just don't know what this Hail Mary play is for the Bucks. I'm not saying there isn't one, because we've seen John Horst do some things in the past we didn't think were doable. There's been a lot of smoke. Just as we said, there's been a lot of smoke around this Giannis stuff, so we at least can't dismiss it. You would have to apply the same logic to some of these trade rumors for a guy like DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine that we continue to see pop up. I didn't have to look, Camille. I could see you roll your eyes when you heard the name Zach LaVine, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are thinking the same thing. I don't think it's a feasible deal because, number one, it's just, if you're doing it in season, a 2031 first-round pick that you could trade. Whether or not he's worth more than that at this point in his career, he's basically the same age as Giannis, Bobby Portis. He's not a player that should be fetching multiple firsts or arguably any first-round picks. Why the Kings would do this is if they could get multiple picks. So there's that. How the Bucks would get there. You don't have many first-rounders to offer. You just have the one. So you can't say, well, we're not going to give you great value players or assets. We'll just bowl you over with draft picks. They don't have that. And then getting to the $47+ million to put this deal together, as we just went through the Bucks roster, it's almost impossible unless you really reverse course here. So everybody pointed to, Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, and you throw that in there and you throw a first-round pick to the Kings for Kyle Kuzma. That's $35.5 million. I believe that falls just outside of the range of the, 120% that you could bring back, more so than what you send out. So that deal wouldn't work to have Kyle and Bobby go into Sacramento for Zach LaVine. So you'd have to throw in a third guy. Then you're looking at, okay, well, then we're doing a 3-for-1 trade. How is this really fitting us when we're going to have to add something else out there? It's not a financial constraint in terms of the aprons or cap that the Bucks would be facing, but still, all right, now we got to add another guy. Well, look at the Kings roster. Maybe you could add someone else. Maybe, but it would have to be, like a Maxine Raynaud or something like that, or Isaac Jones to make the money work for everybody to point to, well, Keon Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with Keon Ellis, the player. What I would say is, have we not seen for 27 games, this team has kind of already cornered the market on players on the perimeter that are 6'4", 6'5".
Yep.
Now you're adding another one to the mix. Sure, he's a better individual defender than the guys that you have. But how exactly does that help turning this around? How does that fix your rebounding? How does that fix everything else? And is Keon Ellis and Zach LaVine the pieces that you would say, don't do anything yet, Giannis, hang on, we got something. Okay, here it is. These two guys, that's our new big three. That's what's getting up there.
I think the point that you just made is where I normally start. And Keon Ellis is somebody who I've like, hey, if Bucks get Keon Ellis, that would be cool. It's just that when you look at the current roster construction, and ultimately all those things can change. Like if the Bucks decide to consolidate their 6'4" guards and they're like, actually, you know what? We're going to try to move off of one of these guys and we want Keon to be in here instead. That's a different conversation. But I keep looking at what the Bucks need. And I know it's like, hey, like Zach LaVine, the offense, you've seen how poor the offense has looked without Giannis on the court. But I'm also kind of like, well, this was a team designed around Giannis. If there is no Giannis, it's not going to make sense. And because of that, I view a trade for somebody like a Zach LaVine or even a DeMar DeRozan, who's a little bit taller, but those scream to me like this is a desperation move. This is like hey, here is a name a career you can respect. Let's bring him over here because we know what he has been and what he can do. Buckets, which is cool. And I'm not saying they're bad players. It's just that when you look at what this team is missing and where this team needs to improve, those two players and players of that ilk do not help with the problems that the Bucks have. They don't help with the defense. They don't help with the rebounding aspect of things here necessarily. So like DeMar more so than Zach gives you some size on the wing, but it's not as if DeMar DeRozan is known for being like a lockup guy either. So for me, if you're going to make that type of swing for a player that has a name, honestly, I think it probably have to be somebody whose name is still growing to a certain degree of like, they're not exactly where we think that they are going to be in a few more years, but we see the potential because they fit into what we currently are looking for in a wing player, which is some positional size, which is someone who can defend, rebound, really be a star in that particular role. Because again, when Giannis is on the court and he comes back, the whole flow of that offense is going to change again. Like we've already seen Ryan Rollins trying to adjust to Kevin Porter Jr. being back in the lineup and finding his spots and the two of them developing their chemistry together. Both of them, Kevin and Ryan, are going to have to adjust again when Giannis hits the court because he's going to have the ball in his hands a bit more than, what any other player on the team has so far with them sharing the court. So ultimately for me, if I see a trade for a Zach LaVine in particular, that is one for me where it's like, man, this feels very desperate from the Bucks, in my opinion, and not the type of target that they should be going after.
Yeah, I mean, the other names that have, and this isn't so much smoke surrounding the Bucks as much as it's Bucks fans, and I get why, that are trying to create these flames here. But the other names that you've heard quite a bit about are the New Orleans boys and Herbert Jones and Trey Murphy. That's more of the same too. Like, look, I would love to have either one of those players.
Better.
Yeah, and especially Trey Murphy. You look at the age, where it's okay if this is a two timelines thing. If we're going to sell Giannis, we're going to bring in Trey Murphy, and we're going to start to build around those two, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and we'll have to re-examine what we're doing with some of our principles and the way that we're playing. I think that's undeniable. That how would we put the strategizing, the way that this team is played, that has to be re-examined. If you're selling Giannis on we're going in, we're making another move. We have to change the way that we play because this, quite frankly, is not working. And I think you've got enough of a sample size, leaving the last year and a half prior to this season out of it, the 27 games this season, to show you the league has changed.
Yeah.
You cannot play the way that, and it's not just Doc, but coaches that have been around as long as Doc has. You cannot play this way anymore. It's not as simple as, okay, we made the adjustment and we're just going to take more threes and we're going to hit those. And we champion that all through the summer, and we overlook some other things too. Its possessions are the most important part to the game. Your true shooting attempts, that's where the Bucks are routinely losing. So you're going to have to fix that. And, you know, one of the ways to do it, if you're not going to have guys, Doc has always maintained teams that can offensive rebound are teams that have guys that are good at offensive rebounding, the guys that can do it. I don't disagree with that as a whole. I think there's a lot of truth to it. I don't think it's entirely true. You know, we're seeing other teams that take threes and get rebounds. The Boston Celtics. Who would have thought coming into the season, Boston looks like an offensive rebounding team to me. Mimi Queta seems like he's going to be one of the best at it in the league. So, like, yeah, there are guys that have that inherent knack, but there are also guys that we can put them in a position to do this. And if you don't have guys that are going to create free throw attempts and juice your true shooting attempts there, you better limit those attempts from your opponent. And one way to do that is to, number one, be a better defensive rebounding team. And then a way to enhance yours is to get more offensive rebounds. That I do really wonder. We've heard about, and I don't even wonder, Camille. I think it's a foregone conclusion. We heard pace coming into the season. Everybody's going to play at a faster pace. Miami did that. It felt very much like a gimmick, and it's starting to seem like they're starting to take on water on that boat now. The big thing you are going to see next year, and we've seen it already this year, but next year I think it's going to be wholesale. Teams are going to lean into offensive rebounding. So you better embrace it. Because otherwise, the way things are shaping up, you know, next year, even if you keep Giannis, you may be one of like 5 teams we're going to play at a slow pace and we're not going to crash the offensive boards.
You know what's really crazy about that is thinking of like heading into the season, we were like, hey, the Bucks look equipped to play a more modern style of basketball than what we've seen before. And it still feels like they're a step behind where actual modern basketball is at the moment. And not even just because of like the offensive rebounding, but just the concepts. Like we mentioned before the Celtics game, like, hey, this is going to be a really interesting matchup because just watch how the Celtics offense operates. Just watch how they're able to generate all these 3-point shots, even though they're without Jason Tatum. Like, yes, they still have a finals MVP in Jaylen Brown that's running the show, but just watch how they generate their offense. And then you see like the Bucks and what you saw like in Brooklyn, you're just like, what is this? Yeah. What is this offense? What is happening? Like, in addition to the fact that some of the players might not make perfect sense altogether on the court, it doesn't feel to me like they're also not being utilized in the best possible way that they could. Like, when you're down someone like a Giannis in this situation, like you have to be very creative in making sure that you are putting your team in positions where they can try to thrive. And the Bucks just haven't gotten that. And to be honest with you, even with a trade for certain players, like if that aspect doesn't change of like, we're going to put players in positions that make sense, and the style of basketball that they're playing continues to be a style where it is fast paced. You are getting up your threes. You're trying to get extra possessions, whether that's from offensive rebounding or forcing turnovers and getting out there and running. Like, if you still can't do that with new personnel, like, what does it matter?
Yeah. There's one other issue right now. We mentioned caught off guard. Hey, the Bucks are back into 10th, but we do need to take a really hard look at the standings and what the ceiling is right now, barring a massive turnaround for this team, whether it be personnel or just the way they do things and stylistically how they're playing. We'll take a look at the elephant in the room with the standings coming up next. Well, there's no reason a big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. And right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can unlock 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. The easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. What makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same coverage for a lower price. The setup takes only a few minutes. You can bring your own phone and number without any issues. Service is fast and super reliable, even on the go. It just feels good knowing you're not overpaying to stay connected. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That is mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required, taxes and fees, initial plan term only. 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for details. All right, it brings us to the standings, Camille. And right now the Bucks are 10th in the Eastern Conference, but they're 11-16. There are 9 teams that have a positive point differential. The Bucks are not one of them. Their point differential is much closer to basically all of those teams, save for the Washington Wizards that are behind them in the standings, than it is to any of the other play-in teams or playoff teams. So it is very much starting to become a which one of these is not like the other when viewing those 10 teams in the standings and seeing the Bucks and the Bulls kind of trading places for who is 10th on any given night. Here's the important part to keep in mind for everyone. You've heard me on the radio shows, on the radio network, on this show too, champion a couple of things. Number one, I'm not a big plus-minus person. I understand it. Sometimes it does tell the story. It doesn't always tell it. It's not my thing. Raw numbers, the counting numbers, rebounding totals, also not for me. I'm more of a rebounding rates guy to look at what percentage of the rebounds available to you did you get, yada, yada, yada. For standings, always look at the loss column. There is nothing you can do to erase that number and remove from it. You can add to wins. Losses you're stuck with. And right now, the Bucks have 16 losses. Now, thankfully, they didn't pull a Clippers and hit 20 losses before you hit 10 wins. But 16 losses. And just looking around, the Bulls, 15 losses. The team that's behind you right now, only 15 losses. Hornets and Nets each have 18 losses. Pacers and Wizards, 20 losses. So right now, the Bucks are as close to the Washington Wizards in the standings as they are the team that is directly in front of them, the Miami Heat. 9th in the Eastern Conference. You're 4 losses back of the Heat. You're 4 losses in front of the Wizards. In terms of getting out of the play-in tournament. Now, here's the good thing. You have this lump of teams from 3 through 9 that is seemingly like on average 15-11, I would say, for the record. The Raptors are 16-11. Celtics and Magic are 15-11. Sixers are 14-11. You got the Cavs and Hawks 15-12, and then the Heat 14-12. So there is this lump of teams that all you got to do is put together 2 weeks where the Bucks won 5 out of their last 6, something like that, and all of a sudden you're right around 500, and you're right back within striking distance of those teams. Here's the problem. We have seen nothing since October to show you this team is capable of doing that. The other sobering thing, Camille, is they have not won back-to-back games since October, 28th, October 30th?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we're approaching 2 months since they have won back-to-back games. You're not going to move past the 10 seed. Like, you are stuck at 10th or not making the playoffs if that doesn't change immediately, because, hey, congratulations. You played 500 the rest of the year, so you finished the season 36-42.
It just, So one of the comments after the Nets game said that Camille sounds like a disappointed parent. And I was like, I enjoy that vibe because that's how I feel, right? Because it's like as you just laid out, it's still in front of you. Like the season is not lost by any means. It's just that you have to play better. The flip side to that is just like you said, but what have you shown us to give us the confidence that you can play better? It hasn't happened. Like to start this season, we heard Giannis talking a lot about, oh, well, good teams don't lose 2 games in a row. We got to bounce back. We got to bounce back. Ultimately, that's a lot of pressure to put on any team to start the year of like, hey, if you lose more than 2 games in a row, you're not good. Like that.
Who knew we had to flip that statement entirely and say bad teams don't win 2 games in a row?
Because the Bucks ain't did it in almost 2 months. And the part that's even more irritating about that is like when you do look at the 11 wins the Bucks have and some of the teams that they beat along the way, you're like, okay. Hey, you knocked out Toronto early. You beat the Knicks. You beat the Warriors without Giannis. You beat, Detroit.
You beat Detroit. You beat Boston. Those first 5 games too, like those 2 wins against the Warriors and the Knicks, and one of them without Giannis. We don't want to do moral victories, but hey, like, all right, you looked much better against Cleveland, a team that gave you a ton of problems the year prior. You beat Toronto, so there was a lot to feel good about, and then it just vanished.
But then you lose to teams where you're like, these should not be games that you are losing. Like, and that's the part for me that's the most like frustrating. It's like we can see when you guys are putting in certain effort. We can see what it looks like when it works. We know this team has the bones at the very least to be competitive. We just have not seen it in execution. And that's the part that is just so irritating about where the Bucks stand, because it's like, the way that Bucks fans have been talking about this team and like just the emotion around it, you would honestly think this is a team that's like has the Pacers record or something like that right now. But they're still in this part where it's like, if you can just string together the wins, you're back in the conversation. The season is not lost. We still have 2/3 of the season to go. But like, I'm also at a point where I currently just don't have the confidence in them being able to do that because we haven't seen it. Like the Bucks have to start showing something, show it. And then like, once you knock 1 win out, win 2 games in a row. Let's start there. Win 2 games in a row. And then let's see what can happen going forward.
I mean, at this rate, I think I would say I expect them to beat the Raptors on Thursday. But then who knows what happens after that? And then you get 2 more days off, and then you embark on the 5-game road trip, which at this point, for all the chatter that we've heard about, they're still open to and exploring, adding things, and making that move to basically sway Giannis. Hey, you want to stay here and we can compete. That 5-game road trip is probably going to determine what you do in your season, because if it's a disaster, let's say you beat the Raptors. So you're 12-16, and all right, can we build some momentum? And then you go 1-4 on this road trip.
Right.
You're 13-20 then. I mean, at that point, it's like you're starting to get closer to 10 games below 500 than you are. Oh, you're almost there. And we talked about the importance of like, can you at least guide this thing to within a game or 2 of 500 at the end of the calendar year and just say, look, it was a disaster. We had injuries. We didn't play well. We may not have the right scheme in place here and how we're approaching how we play on both ends of the floor, but it's January 1st. It's a clean start. We got Giannis back, and we've kind of targeted the things we need to change, we need to do differently. We're going to do it. And this is a different 2/3 or so of the season, a different close to things. Although, by the time you're in the first week of January, I think you're basically halfway through the season. But different year, let's turn the page, and we know what we need to do differently. If you're not there leading up to December, though, I don't think that conversation even happens. That at that point, if we're talking about something like that, worst case scenario, or even worse, if we're talking about a 7-game losing streak going into the month of 7-game losing streak going into New Year's Eve when you return home. But if we're talking about that, where the road trip is that much of a disaster and you don't beat the Raptors, then you're 11-22 if that's the case. Like at that point, I think the answer has been given to you of this is a lot of work to dig out of. And we do know we have a first-round pick this summer. Last time I checked, the other team that's tied to that pick is even worse than we currently are. So this could be potentially like a top 4 pick. And that's what we're just going to have to lean into if that's the case. So like we said at the start of the month, December is going to give you your answer. Yep. That part hasn't changed, although the process to how we got here has changed for this team.
It has. And just as we wrap here, I know a lot of people, based on what our comments have looked like from the everydayers and everything like that, the fire dot camp, right? That's out there. And again, I understand the why behind it. I do just want to offer some dates up just to kind of keep something in mind, because if you go back under Horst, there's been a couple of coach firings, 2-win season with Jason Kidd and then Adrian Griffin. The Jason Kidd firing happened January 22nd, 2018. So didn't happen in December. You had enough time to at least kind of get halfway through the year or whatever the case may be, right? The Adrian Griffin firing happened January 23rd. And then we had Joe Prunty as the interim coach before Doc Rivers came on a few days after that. So I want to put those dates out there because I know there's going to be a subset of fans and people who are like, well, just fire the coach. I would be very, very surprised if the Bucks did that in the year of 2025 is what I wanted to say. As we wrap and just talked about where this team is at and things of that sort. But if it happens in 2025, if it happens at all, I would be completely shocked.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any move like that to happen, certainly in this calendar year. And this is probably another show in itself, but it is a larger conversation then of before you make a move like that, you would have to look at, well, realistically, what else happens this summer? And if the nuclear option happens where your best player is no longer here, does an older coach that has been associated with winning teams throughout his whole career, does he want to stick around for a rebuild and a team that's going on differently? So like there is that to take in consideration. There is the fact that you are currently paying one other coach, not two, I'm pretty sure, not two, but one other coach yet through next season. And if the ceiling of this team is going to be more of the same and like, all right, well, we put ourselves in too big of a hole that we're the 8 seed at best, or we're the 9 seed now. That's not the type of team that you pay 3 coaches for. Right. So, I mean, like, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, like, we do have to keep these things in mind and say, realistically, what are going to be the motives of the organization to say, like, well, maybe the die has been cast and we kind of know where we're at. So let's just roll this into the summer, and wholesale changes that we do decide to make, it'll occur then. But to your point, yeah, traditionally it is not until you get into the second portion of the season in that next calendar year, or in the case of some teams last year, not until the final like 5 games or 3 games of the season,
crazy. Yeah,
you make that deal. But yeah, so leave your thoughts on your reaction to the report from Eric that as of right now, the Bucks are looking to be aggressive and to be buyers. What does that mean? Who are the guys that are on your list? We went through the obvious ones that came up. But realistically, what can the Bucks do too with just that one draft pick you'd be trading in season? So leave your thoughts on that. And we'll get to those on an upcoming show, probably tomorrow's show. As I mentioned, I think we're going to have Frank Madden with us tomorrow on the show to get his reaction to that report, to the thoughts he couldn't share in real time after the game in Brooklyn against the Nets. So we'll get into that coming up on tomorrow's show. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Bucks so you get all the latest podcasts. If we made your Spotify Wrapped, prove it on social media, and you can get a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Tag the National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. We'll drop you a code. You can be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club and get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. For those of you on video, we'll see to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA, hosted by Camille on today's version of it that you'll be hearing. So for Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.